Well, if y'all saw my last video, you know what happened to the J35. Whole pistons are sitting right here. They're all kind of just junk and throwaway. But I wanted to kind of go over an unboxing video with y'all. P2R. These guys are the shit. Show you all the goodies that I got, and we're only missing one thing. But I want to say one thing. Because of the whole shipping issue that's going on in the United States right now, I ordered these on, I believe, a Friday, and it is a Tuesday. Essentially, in my mind, it took 3 days for all these parts to get here. So that means all these parts were sitting on his shelf in his warehouse. He's not sitting there selling a part from, his site that he doesn't have, and it's just coming from some other warehouse. So we got the thermal gasket for the upper to lower intake manifold runners. We actually purchased his fuel pressure regulator kit. So it comes with the rails, the hoses, and the fittings. So that is in here. These are fuel injector clinic fuel injectors. Those are the 445 cc's. Sean recommended I run the slightly thicker Cometic MLS head gasket, so that was the direction we headed with that. I think we chose 40 thou. Yeah, we went ahead and got the 40 thou thickness. That'll be the pressure gauge that goes on the fuel pressure regulator. Here is the hoses that are going to connect it all. I'm going to open all this stuff to let everybody see it. It's the manual timing belt tensioner. I love how he laser etches and engraves his logo. That's so cool. This engine, hopefully I get my whole tuning situation taken care of, because I'm investing far too much money in quality parts. But I have another long block sitting still in the box that I purchased from Sean as well. I purchased 2 long blocks. That's the first one. I have 4 J32A2 blocks at my house. I'm currently at my father's. But I'm actually in a closet right now, believe it or not. So that's where I'm gonna work, to where I don't dirty up his shop. So this is Dad's shop, and it's kind of his space. So I'm utilizing the lift and utilizing the back closet. Here's Ginger. Everybody say hey to Ginger. So we've got D&J rings, a little bit of fuel line. These are, I believe these bolts, these Allens are gonna go with the EGR block off plate. I've just been using a piece of steel I cut out with an angle grinder for years, so I decided to go ahead and upgrade that. Here are all of the fancy jazz fittings. I believe these are AN6, I believe. So yeah, it just simplifies it, because like he probably runs these on his car, either the TL or the Accord, and you can probably buy these individually cheaper, but you don't know what you need. That's the simplistic thing about buying it from him, because I believe also that he doesn't buy these fuel rails. I'm almost 100% positive that he makes these fuel rails in-house. Packaged so nicely. This is the first time I'm looking at all this, so look at that. See, I believe this is made in-house on his aluminum CNC cutter. Because I watched a video that he was doing the other day, and he was actually like drawing up CAD drawings of the manual motor mount, transmission mount for the manual CLTL. So I believe he makes these, which is awesome. That's like awesome. Love that logo. So that's where your AN threads are going to go in. You know, the stock fuel rails, if you come over and look at the stock fuel rails, they don't have that. Where are they sitting at? I don't know where they are over here in this mess. So the stock fuel rails, they're just O-ringed, and they have the stud, and everything is kind of held on with fittings like that. So we're gonna do away with all that old school stuff and get rid of these injectors. I believe this center injector might be the cause of all my issues, but until I can find a flow bench and flow these, I won't know if that was my problem or not. Since I'm gonna already take the old injectors and have them flowed, I'm gonna go ahead and take the brand new injectors that we got and have them flow tested as well. Because I'm going through all this work, there's no sense in having an injector that's like 97% efficiency when others are at 99% efficiency or whatever it is. If I already know that the front bank of cylinders run hotter or whatever the case is, then I need to orientate things to where, you know, if this is 97% and this is 99%, I need to have them like that. If one injector says, oh, it's 93% efficient and this one's 97% efficient, then one cylinder is going to run leaner than the other. And that might actually be the situation that I'm having right now. But before I go all the way in depth with all this, you need to check your injectors. And it's just, I'm a newbie. I know just enough to get me in trouble when it comes to assembling an engine. So I'm not stupid, but there are areas that I've skipped over, more on the lines of because I felt like I'm running this thing pretty much stock. I'm adding things to it, yes, but I've been having failures. My failure, I believe, is directly connected and correlated to the tuning or the ECU or something on that lines. It could have been my fuel got too hot because of the transfer pump that I have. There's just multitude. I just don't know. So until I give my car to a different tuner and have him open up the tune and run the car on his dyno, then he can tell me whether or not it was a mechanical failure on one of these parts, or yeah, the tune was way off and that is why you had failure. On that aspect of it, I would rather him tell me my tune is way off. But if he tells me that my tune was actually good, then the tuner that I originally used shouldn't be a problem. But what can you do? We don't know how to tune. I don't know how to tune. And no one's really willing to teach you. You learn by your mistakes. So the hardest part I'm having trouble with is just getting my damn computer hooked to it at all. So that's how much of a newbie I am. I'm a very hands-on mechanical person. I'm just not a computer person, but I'm slowly learning how to be a computer person. So if you look at all these parts, the one part we're missing is the blue timing belt. So because my heads are at the machinist, because the piston ended up doing that, the heads had to go to the machine shop because I have to check all my valve seats to make sure everything's still sealing. Every little dot you see here, I don't believe those are detonation marks. What I believe those are the piece of ring that broke off. I believe it was embedding ping, 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 ping. Because none of these others have those detonation marks is what some people have called them, but they don't have it. Now this piston also chipped, which they were side by side. This was your front center and this was your front left. This one over here was the closest to the transmission. It didn't do it. But you can already tell on the side of that where it was starting to melt that. Now, that could be a hot spot. That could be improper fuel burn. That could be pre-detonation. As far as this is concerned, that could have been like it getting too hot due to lean conditions. The ring gap wasn't set far enough apart, so the rings touched. And then they just popped the top of the piston up. Or fuel could have been sprayed in at a wrong time. And I had a drag racer tell me, he says sometimes you can get fuel, unburned fuel trapped between your top and your second ring. And then when that fuel detonates, it's like a little firecracker trapped between the two. Now the reason why he thinks that is because of this one spot right here where it's lifted. You see how it lifted that up? That was his assumption, was that fuel got trapped between the second and the first ring and exploded, and that was the issue. So maybe it's not a lean condition. I just don't know. But it's definitely a situation that we all have to pay attention to. Now I have a borescope camera, so I'll be able to check the cylinders after every run. And hopefully this new tuner that I'm taking the car to will teach me a little bit about how to basically just read it on my computer. And a second thing, I'll save the majority of it for when I get it, but I just purchased the AEM CD5 dash. So it'll have a logger and it'll have GPS on it. And the main reason why I bought it is because of its digital display. It's going to show me everything. So you get rid of all your gauges and everything, it's all displayed there. But it also has this thing on the screen where if you're getting engine knock, it's going to display engine knock right on the LCD screen. So it's like, okay, I need all these things to monitor everything that's going on, because this is the second engine I've blown up in the same exact way. And I'm just spending money and I'm not enjoying my hobby. Now, I bought the basic D&J pistons, and I'm basically just replacing cast pistons with cast pistons. I couldn't afford to buy $1,100 Tron pistons right now. Did I want them? Absolutely, I wanted them. But I can ruin $1,000 pistons just as easy as I can ruin $240 pistons. You know what I'm saying? So until I get my tuning down, there's no sense in going into the direction of expensive pistons. What are you doing, dog? I start hearing something behind me. Hey, you better get out from under there. Come on. You're gonna get dog hair all over my stuff. Come on. I know. You give me them puppy dog eyes. I know. I love you. But back to the thing. There's no sense in running forged pistons if I can't understand why I'm having the detonation issues that I'm having. I'm going to change my intake manifold because I've gutted the manifold over here. I'll show you what I've done. Anybody can weigh in on this video. I know J32, J35 people, Honda people will watch it, but you can kind of weigh in and tell me if there's something I've done wrong, because I have no guidance here. I'm a racing team of one at this point. If you look at it, I basically cut all of the channels out across that used to be there. So I don't know if I'm getting improper flow to one cylinder or another. So maybe I'm not getting the correct air percentage flows in each one. In my opinion, it should all pretty much be equal. But I'm gonna go back with the magnesium intake manifold, but it's the aluminum version, so it's just the cheaper version. I've already gasket matched it to these styles, so they should match the ported runners that came from P2R, which are right there. Those are P2R's runners right there. So everything I have on this car came from P2R. So if you're wondering about buying parts from them, I highly recommend it. This is the fuel surge tank that I was telling you about. This came from Radium Engineering, and I love this too. It's great in theory, but I'm feeling like this was my issue because there's a fuel pump trapped inside of here, and there's no fins on here to try to exacerbate the heat. It's got to pull the heat out of there. My dog's sitting in the corner again. So what ends up happening is this is your outlet. So this is fed from the stock tank into here, and then the pump that's inside of here sends fuel to your engine. It runs through. Any returning fuel gets returned back into the can, and then this is like an overflow port here that hooks to the return on your stock tank. So you're getting the heat from this internal pump that is heating up the aluminum can and also in turn heating up the fuel. And then you're getting your return fuel from your fuel rail, which is also hot because your engine bay has extreme heat saturation from what I've learned. So you're getting hot fuel returned to this canister, and then whatever's left goes back into the stock tank. So the only thing cooling it off is the fuel coming in right here from the stock tank. So ever since I've put this on the car, I've blown up 2 engines right at the 90-minute mark. So I'm feeling like when I run down to about 5 gallons of fuel in the stock tank, it loses its cooling efficiency. My fuel gets hot. Once your fuel gets hot, you're going to start having pre-detonation problems. So that's what I believe is my problem, because my surge tank was mounted just like this, and my exhaust pipe was like right here underneath the car. So it was only separated by about 15 inches. So I feel like the heat radiating off the 3-inch exhaust came over here and heated up the can. Now, me personally, I did not mount this under my car at that point. The tuner I took my car to, he put it there. He made this little bracket and he did all the fueling. I didn't understand AN fittings. I never did it. I never wanted to do it. I wanted to give it to a professional and say, here, you do it. So that's what I did. I paid for that, and everything I paid for, I just stripped back out the car. So that money was lost, and money was lost letting him tune it, I think. So that could be my cause for all my troubles. So you get to a point where you've blown up engines and you develop that mindset of, okay, let's go all the way back to the very beginning, to the drawing board. Let's figure out what we changed, and let's start making incremental changes one at a time, because I did a dozen changes at once. And when you do a dozen changes at once, you got to take them all off because you don't know what was your problem. Hot fuel is a very, very hard problem to try to wrap your head around. I never expected heat in my fuel to cause my issue. Now, I don't know if it's my issue. My fuel might not have been hot, but I can see in theory how the heat from the exhaust and all the stuff can do that. There's actually someone on a forum who put a surge tank in his engine bay compartment. Never had that problem until he took his car to the mountains. And then when he was going up the mountains, he started getting his engine shutting off. And he would let the car cool for about 45 minutes with the hood open. Car would run fine for about an hour, and then it would do it again. And they ended up having the same issue I'm having, and they traced it all the way back to the heat and the fuel. So that's what I believe my issue is. It may be that simple, but if it is, great. But I can't take that risk now that I'm investing all this money into rebuilding a brand new J35 that only had, I'm going to say, 100 miles on it. That's kind of pathetic when you think about it. So totally operator error. But because I'm going to buy the CD5 dash, it's going to come with all the monitoring things. So I'll be able to monitor things like fuel pressure. So I bought a sensor to go in the place of this old mechanical gauge. The sensor is going to go right into the fuel pressure regulator, and sensor will be plugged up to the Series 2 ECU, and then that will talk to the CD5 dash and relay all the information to me. That is technical beyond any terms that I've ever dealt with computers, but I've invested, if what you can see here is roughly $1,500, I got another $1,200 in the ECU, and I got another $2,000 in the dash. So you can add all that up, and it adds up real quick. And at that point, I'm at $5,000, and I still don't have a tune in my car that won't last more than 90 minutes. So I have to start spending money wisely. But if you're racing and you're doing this on an endurance style level, you got to understand everything's expensive. So I don't mind spending money in places as long as my money is well spent, but when I start doing circles and nothing is, beneficial or anything like that, then it becomes one of those things where it's like a giant money pit. And I think anybody who loves cars and gets to that frustrating point realizes that, you got to make smart decisions. So I can't do this reliably without that dash monitoring all of those things. Now, another thing I noticed when we were racing, my oil temps reached way past 300 degrees. And you can see that in my video if you go back and watch my track day video. So I actually bought this gigantic oil cooler. I paid $120 for this. It came with like 5 or 6 AN10 fittings. And I'm going to just get some hose, some new AN line, and we're going to run it over to the sandwich plate on the motor. So if you look, You can see that bad boy. So hopefully that will help oil temperature issues and stuff like that. But all right, I'm gonna cut the video off here, and I'm gonna get down to the business of checking all my ring gaps and stuff like that. So I got an old school ring grinder here. An engine builder in our town used to build NASCAR engines for Penske back in the 80s and the 90s. So he has so much stuff in a nice machine shop, but he doesn't mess with 4 cylinders or 6 cylinders. He only does large V8s, and he also does side-by-side engines because they're just so popular. So he ended up giving me his old school ring grinder, and I'm just gonna do it the old school way. So we're gonna open up the ring gaps. Stock is 14. I'm gonna open up to 18, and I might open up the bottom, the second ring to like 22. But just trying to take out possible scenarios, because maybe the ring gap closed, maybe not, who knows. But we're gonna go ahead and start that process. So thank y'all for watching. Hope you enjoyed the unboxing video of all P2R's amazing products. I wish these were Tron pistons, but the budget just didn't allow it at this time. So to me, if I blow up the motor and I only throw away a couple $100 in these pistons, it is what it is. Then I'll go back to the stock ECU, and I'll shove the other short block that I have back in the car, and we'll just continue having fun at a less competitive level. But honestly, for what you pay for these, they look really nice. I love the fact that it's got the Teflon on the side, and it's got a slightly raised dish. If you compare these to, where is it at? This is a J32 A2 piston. I wanted to see how much they were in comparison. So that's your J32 A2, right? I'm gonna try to get it, and you can see that slight little bit of a dome. So we're gonna do the same thing, same angle with this piston. Let's get down on it. So I'm gonna say that's raised up about 1/8 of an inch. And when you get down here and you look at that one, that's only raised up about 1/16 of an inch. So these are actually slightly higher than those. And you can physically tell. You can physically tell that. So yeah, that's slightly raised higher. So that was the reason why we wanted to choose thicker Cometic head gasket, was because I have the flat face valves in my head with the SuperTech spring kit that they sell, and we wanted to make sure that my valves would actually clear the top of this. So it's one thing we'll have to check. But that's where I'm gonna cut it off here, guys. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Shoot any comments, anything you want to leave. You know, I know you might have questions, or you might have answers, or you might have a little bit of input. Please leave a comment. I love input. I love anybody who watches car videos. I love racing. I love building stuff. I just hate it when it doesn't work right, and that's the one thing I'm not in control of at the moment. So I just got to find a reliable tuner who can tell me yes or no, or show me a little bit. So a little bit of guidance goes a long ways. So if you ever have the time, don't ever be afraid to help somebody. Thank y'all for watching. Take it easy.